Servus YouTube, Chef here. I finally finished my mage build, sorry for the long wait, but I'm also working a full-time job. I stream over on Twitch and also the community webpage takes quite some time to update, so I got my hands full. But yeah, it's finally here. I did try Crit Mage first, but I could not make it work, so I swapped over to ailments, and as you can see in the footage, it can clear level 120 easily. I first want to talk about ailments, since those are the very fundamentals of this build. I have done an advanced guide on this in the beta, which still applies to the release version, but to briefly summarize. We have either attack damage or spell damage, and both of those have in total 9 damage types, which are grouped in 3 sections: material with physical, toxic and rend, elemental with fire, frost and lightning, and occult with ether, sacred and shadow. We can only apply the corresponding ailment of our highest damage type. For example, let's say we deal 300 toxic damage and 150 fire, so this spell or attack would apply the poison ailment. With the passive node Grievous Afflictions, we make it so our 2 highest damage types apply their ailment. So by manipulating our base damage on attacks and spells, we apply every single ailment with the exceptions of freeze and stun. Since stun is not in the game yet and freeze does not trigger Mortal Offering or any other buffs. Then these damage types have only a chance to apply their ailment, depending on our ailment chance score. Once we proc that, we apply 1 stack of the ailment, where we can add more stacks with gear and passives. And then we can multiply those stacks by 2 with the 3 passive nodes in the Kabbalist class. So if we have plus 2 stacks on gear, we would apply 6 stacks in total per proc. With that out of the way, let me explain which skills apply which ailment. Avenger Auto Turret applies poison and bleed, since we get added toxic and rend damage to attacks on gear. Then all of our spells apply stasis, because we only focus around ether damage added to spells, which makes it our 2nd highest damage type. Then we use conversion on anomaly to deal lightning damage, which applies shock, tear of ethereal converted to fire to apply burn, and arctic spear into sacred to apply weakness. The trial belt triggers Mark of Impurity on anything we hit, which applies curse because of the modifier accursed blade. And the last 2 spells that we are using are for utility. Bulwark of Dawn gives us a damage buff and health regen to negate Fatal Pact's damage, and the last skill, Ether Jump, is for mobility. With the introduction out of the way, let's talk details in the items, skills, attributes and passive sections. Items. Main hand. We have to use a dagger or pistol to be able to cast turret. The most important thing is toxic and rend damage added to attacks. This needs to be higher than 25% of our total attack damage, since Immortal Offering gives us additional damage of the corresponding ailment's damage type, which would mess up our ailments that we want to apply. Then once we have that sorted, other affixes we are looking for from highest to least priority: percent ailment damage increases, percent elemental or material damage, and flat ailment chance score. Offhand is a catalyst with flat ether damage added to spells, percent ailment damage and flat ailment chance score. Other useful stats are percent spell life leech and cast speed. Accessories, rings and amulet, with the most important affix ailment stacks inflicted. This is a Saracel affix obtained by luring Untainted in expeditions. If you need information on that, watch my beginner guide. It can now also be obtained by socketing a Genesis stone and using a regent on it. Then we also want to avoid other flat damage types added to spells, or if you happen to roll other good stats on it, add more ether damage on other gear to make it your 2nd highest damage type. Other affixes we are looking for are percent damage increases, percent resistance score, and percent ailment chance score. Belt. We are using the unique trial. It automatically applies Mark of Impurity on anything we hit. If you don't have this unique, grab a normal belt with the same stats as the other accessories and swap Bulwark of Dawn for Mark and apply it yourself. Shoulders and gloves. We are looking for the item category heavy, because resistance combos with our passives. The most important affix is generic % damage increase after that material, and the other affixes we want are flat wisdom, flat all ras score, then material is decent since the passive scales with physical resistance, and last % cost reduction. Helmet, chest and pants, heavy category again, with our highest priority on cooldown reduction since our spells have a fairly high one. Other things we are looking for on here are flat all ras or material ras score, flat status ailment chance, % transfer time reduction and flat health. And last, boots with % damage increase and % move speed. Gems, we are looking for tier 1 offensive slots with either emerald or ruby, depending on what damage type you lack on attacks. If you happen to roll tier 2 offensive, we could make use of ambers for added ether damage to spells, and in tier 3 we could use topaz for increased burn damage. On defensive we want tier 3 for all ras from Alexandrite, however the other 2 tiers would give us still the passive node damage increase with Copperstone. And last on support we are looking for tier 3 with Amethyst for transfer time reduction. If you roll other sockets or have enough on gear already, use Topaz for more fire damage or Leech. Skills: Avenger Auto Turret with the most important modifiers Flag Launcher, Twin Repeater and Ballistics. Others we are using are Kinetic, Automated and Sleepless. Keep in mind that you don't have to use turret, any other attack skill is viable. Other attack skills I enjoyed using are Bleeding Edge, Deathgazer Railgun and Wailing Arrows. Then Anomaly, the spell with which we apply shock through the modifier Echo Wave pattern. The other modifier Rending of Matter basically halves the cooldown since we can cast it a second time. And then Echoes for utility and Auspicious for damage. Next spell is Tear of Ethereal, which applies burn through the mod Scorned by Fire. Mandatory modifier Stalactite Rain, which makes the spell hit more often, and the last few points are spent on Meteor and Climactic for cooldown and Dizzying for damage. Another option that I also very enjoyed was Solar Fall with these modifiers. Next spell is Arctic Spear, converted into Sacred for the weakness stacks with Beauty of Hope, and Boon and Ominous for utility. If you do not have the unique build The Trial, swap this out for Mark for less damage and more survivability by keeping Bulwark. Bulwark with these modifiers, most important one is Divine, so it always stays on top of us, and Generative and Everlasting to have 100% uptime. There is a modifier that makes this skill deal sacred damage, but it won't apply weakness since it's not our highest damage type. If you don't have the unique belt, swap this for Mark of Impurity. And last skill, Ether Jump, the best movement spell in the game with March of Time Devouress, Escape Artist and Hypocosmic for fast traveling around maps. And then you also want to level up Mark, since the modifiers still work even when applied with the belt. This is where we get our curse stack from, with the modifier Accursed Blade. And the others all increase ailment damage and ailment chance. Attributes. I put points into Wisdom until I reach 30% ailment chance, since I don't have perfect gear and only apply 8 stacks per proc. If you have at least +4 stacks on gear, I recommend going down to 10%. That is more than enough if you apply almost all stacks in 2 procs, since our spells hit very often. And then the rest of the points all into toughness. Passives. This is the finalized tree. Keep in mind that you can turn the wheels on the left side, so from the middle to the south, the rings, the first ring is Soldier, the second one is Ranger and the Warlock, and to the bottom is Arms Maester and White Arrow. Critical nodes are Witch Time Cannot Heal. This basically doubles our damage since it works with ailments. Ancient Fervor for more damage. And Fatal Pact for damage as well. This applies all ailments to ourselves. That is the reason we go for Bulwark, to negate that. This will only apply 1 stack, even though if we proc our ailments we apply 8 stacks, it will only give us 1 to ourselves. Then Salvatore in the endgame for more defense. And every single node in the Kabbalist, with the exception of Primordial Insight. This node is still bugged, and once it's fixed, this build will become even more powerful. I will now go over which points to take first while leveling. We start off in the Scholar, making our way into the Kabbalist, grabbing every single major keynode in this tree. Making our way through the Warmonger, into the Ranger, into Time Weaver, to get which time cannot heal as fast as possible, since this is a huge damage increase, and then we can also get the maximum stacks right there. After that we grab more ailment chance here. Then we go into the Siegebreaker for more defense. Then we start the second part of the skill tree down there in the Soldier. Coming through the Warlock to grab Retaliator over here. Then we finish off all the damage nodes over here, here, and into there. And then the last few points we spent in the Abyssal Shaper. Then once I level up further, I will finish off the Exorcist with Branded Burst here. Then a random 10% damage increase here. And also I'm gonna grab Banner, combo that with Selfless Courage, get more defense. And that's it for this guide. Hope you enjoyed the build. Let me know in the comments what you think. This guide will also be available as a written version on our community webpage. Also leave me a like if you appreciate the Wolcen content, and if you want to go the extra mile, chuck me a few bucks on Patreon for all the hard work, time and effort I put into this. As usual, I'm burning the midnight fuel yet again, because I'm also working a full-time job and I don't really have much time to do this. But yeah, as always, I'll leave you with more gameplay. Servus YouTube.